Hi there everyone, it's Todd Nauck and welcome back to this two-part video series of BB-8 drawn on an orange post-it note. This is part 2 of 2, the Copic color illustration. I'm using Copic sketch markers here, and this video is sped up to twice its normal speed of what I shot it at. And yeah, so we're just going to be dropping in a lot of Copic marker in here and really starting to render out this little robot. So I'm starting off here with a YR16. That's the shade of orange from my collection that I felt most accurately represented the orange parts of BB-8, you know, here on the circles and the stripes. So dropping in a base shade here, and then what I'm going to do is come in with a little bit of a darker shade of orange, which would be my YR07, to start to blend in some darker shadows bit by bit. All right, so now that I've gotten the oranges in pretty well here where I'd like them to be, I want to start putting in some heavier gray shading. So I'm starting with a warm gray number 4, and this warm gray is what I'm using to shadow out the white part of his body as well as the orange of his body. The orange is a warm color, so a warm gray works well here. It blends nicely with the orange, and it's helping create that shadowy shades from the lower parts of his body. So I'm starting with a warm 4, then I move here to the warm 2 to blend from that darker shade of warm to a lighter shade of warm. As I'm heading from darker to lighter to where I'm leaving a lot open for the white, what would be considered the white part of his body. So after I've used my warm 2, oh, I wanted to make sure I filled in those little, this is where I noticed that I forgot to fill in these little stripes across the base of his head, so I brought my YR16 to take care of that. Now I'm ready to continue with my my shading with a warm 1. Now I've gone to an even lighter gradation, blending from that warm 4 to the warm 2 to the warm 1. And now I want to cut in with a different shade of gray, and I'm using a neutral gray here. It's a completely different shade of gray from the warm gray, so a neutral 3 as my base shade, starting off light right now, and getting all these different little sections. I'm using photo reference. I have photo reference of BB-8, so I know exactly where the colors are and you know which shades of orange or gray I should use from my collection to best represent BB-8's shades of orange and gray. And then coming in with a darker shade of gray, the neutral 4 here to start to darken up some of these sections of the gray on BB-8's body. So I'm going to just keep on sculpting in color here, and that's what I really enjoy about the Copic sketch markers is the brush tip and how you can sculpt in color and how well it helps blend the colors. So blending in with a little neutral gray number 5 just to give a little more contrast in these gray stripes and shapes on BB-8's body. And now we're up to his eye, and I noticed in the photo reference his eye is quite dark, almost black, but rather than just going straight out with black, I'm using darker shades of neutral gray, like an 8 around the rim and then a 9 here for a base color for his eye, leaving a little bit of a highlight there per my photo reference, and then coming in with a neutral 9, and then with a neutral 10, putting a little bit of a darker shade at the bottom of the eye to give it a little bit of a dome shape. So now it's time to do a background. So I wanted to put BB-8 on the desert planet Jakku, so starting with the Y21 as a base. So I went with a kind of really light shade of yellow as a base for the sand, and now I'm coming in with some shades of warm gray to kind of dirty it up a little bit. So a warm 1 for initially over that yellow, and then a warm 3 to start putting in a shadow underneath the BB-8. And then I wanted to create the junk from the scavenger junkyard that is around and from what I'm looking at in the photo reference. So instead of drawing it in with pencil, I thought I'm just going to color it in because I want it to have a real sort of distant sort of look. So coming in with some B01 and some B000, I'm starting to build my sky first. I thought let's put the sky in first, then I'd be able to put the junk in on top of that. So so before I got too far into the junk, I decided to work in the sky. And so saturating the paper with the B000, then coming back over that again with the B01 to convey the sky, which is pretty challenging here, trying to create a blue sky on an orange post-it note. The orange of the paper is really going to affect it, but the main focus is BB-8, so I'm not too worried about how well the sky is turning out. It's just there to kind of give BB-8 some pop. So now I'm using a warm gray number 4, a darker shade of warm gray, to start building on top of the sand and sky that I've laid down to create the junk. So looking at the shapes in the background of the illustration, or the photo that I'm using as reference, I'm just kind of freehanding, just fully just playing with the color here to create the shapes of the spaceships and engines and remnants of the things that I'm seeing there. So it's really free form here. It's definitely just background elements. Like I said, BB-8 is the focus here. The background elements just are giving him a little world to live in, and I'm starting to sound like Bob Ross here. Give him a little world to live in. Happy little robot, happy droids. In this world here, so the junk really isn't the focus here. It's just elements to help give BB-8 a reality to live in, and something for the viewer's eye to kind of play with and notice, but not really isn't really the focal point here. So I'm coming in with these different shades of warm gray to help convey these this junk in the background. So I certainly don't want to overwork the junk in the background. It's really just, like I said, just sort of some simple elements back there. But one thing I did notice in the photo reference were these kind of power line type shapes. So using my French curve, another drafting tool like I used in the first line art video, I want to just add those power lines to help kind of, as a design element, bridge the two sides of the environment. Now, something I do really enjoy using is this white pencil, and this is a Spectracolor pencil. I also like to use the Prismacolor watercolor white pencil in my Post-it note illustrations. So since I'm using colored Post-it notes and I'm not using white paper, which I often do in my illustrations, I'm having to, I don't really have a white, or in the past I didn't really have a white to use. There was no white for the illustration. So white kind of disappeared until I discovered these different white pencils that I could use to bring in a nice soft white to the illustration. It kind of helps give that feeling of white, but we're still getting that color of the paper showing through underneath. But I felt it really kind of brought a nice sort of depth to the character and really let you see that white, and gave the character a bit more pop off the page. And really, I just really like the effect that coloring in the white pencil over the colored paper and over the Copic marker as well. I'm coloring over a lot of that warm gray I laid down, but that's why I use such a dark shade, is that when I color over it, you can still see the gray underneath, and you can still see the shadow, but I've lightened it up. It's a sense of the white now having shadow. Now, as I do in all of my Post-it note illustrations, is putting a white outline around the character. I just really like the pop that will give, especially off that colored paper. It's just kind of the way I like to roll. So I'm using a Uniball Signo white gel pen. It's a really nice gel pen. I really like the flow of the white that comes from the paint that comes from the pen itself. So it's one of my favorites. I do use a Jelly Roll gel pen occasionally for much smaller, tighter details. So using my circle templates again, like I used in the first video, I'm now dropping in the white outline around just the contours, just the perimeter here on BB-8. So I don't need to do a lot of use with the white gel pen, just enough that you get the head and body getting outlined in white. So I'm gonna, once I finish the outline here, I'm gonna add just a few highlights. I want to put a few highlights in his eye. I noticed in my photo reference his eye was reflecting some lights here, so I wanted to add that. And I also wanted to add a little, I noticed that there are portions of his body that also have little lights that light up, like right here on this gray section there were two little lights. And that pretty much does it. We are done. We have finished this illustration of BB-8, my very first one, which was a lot of fun to do. He's a very fun character to draw. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing. Again, as always, I always appreciate the support. I hope you all had fun, and hopefully I'll see you all again real soon. Thanks for watching my channel, and see you next time.